begin our special commission meeting. Please note for the record that all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Engen. He will not be here. The first item on the agenda is the special event permit alcohol beverage license, and she is running late, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in that, because of that, we will move on to the second process. The second item, the application for permission to hold a public display of fireworks. Is there anyone here from Memory Fireworks? We have no one here representing Memory Fireworks. Then we do have, I believe, Mr. Reinsinger from the airport administration that is online. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, yes. Since Memory Fireworks is not here, Ryan, I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of discuss what kind of impact this display of fireworks would have on the airport.
Sure, thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity here, and certainly appreciate being able to address the commissioners on this item. And maybe just a little bit of background, if I can. Firework displays certainly were in the vicinity of airports are something that we want to be mindful of. And historically, whether it's pilots, air traffic controllers, or our airport operations staff, from time to time there have been displays where we didn't know how high the shots were going to be. They were in close proximity of the airport, and we actually had to, we as the airport authority don't have the jurisdiction necessarily to prevent that. So we end up contacting 911 Central Dispatch. They end up dispatching law enforcement to try to minimize the impact or prevent those fireworks from being launched at that location. This time last year, Memory Fireworks did approach us as the airport, asked about a public display. And again, the airport authority doesn't necessarily have jurisdiction to prevent a display, but I did voice concern from the airport authority perspective, not only on behalf of the airport, but on behalf of our users. Unfortunately, they did proceed with the event last year. It was noticed, and we did have to contact law enforcement to attempt to have that operation discontinued. And in lieu of that, I was in contact with our airport attorney. He was in contact with Haley Wamstad, who I see is on the call this morning as well. And they worked out a process where there could be at least a review and a determination whether or not the firework display, I should say public firework display, could be authorized or not. And so I won't get into all the legal aspects. If you have those questions, I think I'm sure Ms. Wamstad would be able to answer those. But nonetheless, this is the first permit that I'm aware of that's come through for this sort of review. And given the information that's been provided, the items that we look at as the airport authority are not only the days and times, the type of fireworks, and then very importantly, the exact location. And if you're familiar with Memory Fireworks, they're just south of County Road, or just south of US 2 on south of County Road 5, just to the southwest of the airport. And this is an important location because it is literally immediately under the air traffic pattern for general aviation aircraft. And as you know, we're one of the busiest airports in the country. And it just so happens that at that location, aircraft, depending upon winds and which runways are in use, but at that location, aircraft are either transitioning from traffic pattern altitude, which is about 800 feet, down to landing at which would be, at ground level. And so the exact altitude of the aircraft is going to vary. depending upon the pilot and the conditions. Also, if we're using other runways, they could be departing and leaving ground level and elevating up to the traffic pattern altitude. So that altitude is going to vary, and that's another very important piece here. The other part that was reviewed, the type of fireworks they listed were 200 gram and 500 gram. And I'm not a fireworks expert. However, through a very scientific Google search, it appears that 200 gram fireworks can go as high as 150 feet, and 500 gram can go as high as 200 feet. And there again, that would cause some concern from our perspective. The other piece that I want to note, when pilots are operating and they see a fireworks display, especially in close proximity to an aircraft, they may request a deviation of the traffic, the standard traffic pattern, which is really not something that we want to be getting into from a control standpoint. And it just creates an environment that can lead to other challenges. And the reason why they might deviate, even if the fireworks are consistently below their level or their perceived level, they don't know how high the next one's going to be. And that's really the other part of that concern. So really, in this particular case, I believe the proposed site, that location, is really the biggest concern. And if, for example, if the same proposed fireworks display was 4 miles further to the west, this likely wouldn't be an issue for the airport authority, because aircraft through that zone are at a much higher altitude than traffic pattern or transitioning down to the runway. So that was the background there, and for those reasons, I would recommend that this particular permit, as presented, not be approved at that site.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Wamstead, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, what Mr. Reisinger stated is correct as far as the permitting process. If the board has any questions about the legal requirements or the process that was established, I certainly can answer those, but I think he sufficiently summarized them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions at this point?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment.
Okay, comments?
And my comment, I guess, is that, you know, we as a county have been advertising on Facebook, other social media. Emergency management has been in, you know, the fire restrictions and precautions and things like that have been serious. And with even with our partners, our rural firefighters, that sort of thing. And I just think that we need to, we still have concerns, and things may be better because we've gotten some rain here, but I think what, you know, with the airport and with the fire concerns and things like that, we need to practice what we're preaching and asking other people to do. And so I would support only not allowing fireworks this year.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Schneider, do you have any comments to make based on this?
No, thanks.
All right, so we do not have anybody here from Emory Fireworks to actually explain what their plan was. They had been looking at doing this 3 different times, June 30th, July 1st, and July 4th. They talked about the 200 gram and the 500 gram, and that's what you alluded to, Mr. Reisinger. What are the wishes of the board at this time?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would make a motion, we deny the request.
Okay, there is a motion to deny the request for public fireworks. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll go ahead.
No, you can.
I'll second the motion. I think there's a concern with the airport authority relative to safety out there, and we just can't take a chance with that. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? If there is no discussion, assuming a roll call vote, all those who are in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Okay, then perfect timing. We have our next item on the agenda, which is a special event permit alcoholic beverage license. Sarah, do you want to come up and?
I'm Emily.
Emily, sorry, I get you.
You
two
know
guys-
that.
Yeah, I get you guys mixed up. Okay, do you want to come up and introduce yourself and your address and then explain what you're asking for?
I'm Emily. I'm one of the owners of Good Friends in Larimore, my sister, Sarah. It's a special event license so that we can cater and have a portable bar at a groom's dinner this Friday. The address is on there. It's just outside of Larimore on 18. But I do have the address in my phone as well. It's Paul Hofer's farm. I think the address is actually Northwood, but it's closer to Larimore. Anyway, we had another license similar to this last August for a wedding that we did. I believe it's only going till about 11 p.m. this Friday. And we're doing the catering and beverages. We'll be under a tent, so it'll all be on their private property.
It's the Hofer Farm?
Yeah.
111 37th
Yes.
Street Northeast, and it's Northwood, but it's right on Highway 18.
Yeah.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any questions of Emily?
I just have one.
Yep.
Is anybody gonna be monitoring the underage kids
I'll,
eating any alcohol?
well, my bartender's always card.
Okay,
I don't believe there will be. I mean, there's gonna probably be small children, but it's not like a party or, it's just a groom's dinner.
okay. Okay, well, that's just my concern is, the younger kids, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, getting a hold of alcohol and then driving out on the road. And-
Yeah. I mean, we do card people just like we do in the bar.
Okay,
And you may want to mention it to Sheriff Schneider that, he's got deputies out around the county. You
Yep,
may wanna-
I did speak to him a
Okay.
couple of weeks ago, so.
Good. So they may be stopping by or whatever.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Paul?
You're good with this, Sheriff?
Madam Chair Peach, Commissioner Polk, members of the commission. Yes, I did speak with the organizers of the event. We have a application form. I briefly talked with them on the phone, and after a brief discussion, I realized that it did not meet the criteria that would require any security because of the type of event it is, the amount of people, the restrictions that are being placed on the persons allowed to attend. So I have no concerns over this permit being granted.
Do you have anything else to say, Emily?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. There's construction from Larimore to Grand Forks, so.
That's okay. What are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve the permit as requested.
Okay, and is there a second to that motion? All right, any discussion? If there is no discussion, assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Okay, I do not believe we have any other items for the meeting. So the meeting is the meeting is adjourned. Could I have a motion, please?
So, so moved. I'll second it.
Assuming a roll call vote, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, meeting is agended. Thank you all for your.
It's agended.
It's agended, adjourned. Thank you all.
No, are we gonna hear from the board?
You stand there, right?
Yeah, that's why I came to the second one.
We don't have it on the agenda,
Okay,
so we can't talk
Okay.
about that because it's not on the agenda.
what's that?
Well, I
No, it is.
Is it on the agenda?
Well, that's the next meeting.
there are.
Now we have another.
Now we
meeting.
have
It's the
another
next meeting, yeah.
Administrative
Yes, ma'am.
Probably discussion.
So you heard the bad news that my dog died last year.
That it's.
Yes, my
Dang.
one I gave you, I know.
Dang,
I
died.
think Justin or Dakota maybe told
I
me.
know,
Our
she
girl-
raised my dog.
There's going
She
to
had my dog when he was a puppy.
Well, he was a bit, he was an oof.
He was an oops, but he was a big dog. He was a sweet ass.
Do you need kittens by chance? I got a bunch
I
of them.
don't want.
She does
You
need
know, I
kittens.
do need kittens. We'll talk
No,
to her
because I told him
because
Since that
our,
was
we
nine,
had
9:15, I didn't even know if we
And,
were done by now.
So keep it
running.
Keep it running, Andy.
I'm not burning these steaks, so come talk to me in the kitchen.
Yes,
I know,
thank
they
you,
were very- very nice. I
Commissioner.
know they're-
Excuse me.
Eric? Yes. We need order.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Mr. Ford wants to talk. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Commissioner Falk, members of the commission. Just very briefly, I'll be referencing the memo that is both what's in your packets and I printed and put hard copies on your desk. And keep in mind, so we'll be referencing the ARPA or American Rescue Plan Act, not to be confused with the CARES Act, which was quite a few months ago now. But the ARPA created the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds and really it's to support the immediate pandemic response and the hardships that the COVID pandemic has brought on local governments, public health, those in poverty, and those unable to access healthcare, along with support the revitalization of economic opportunities in communities. First and foremost, I want to point out that the county should there's no hurry to spend the money. In fact, North Dakota Association of Counties, NACO, National Association of Counties, they're all advising that counties, cities, et cetera, be patient and very strategic and deliberate about how to use the ARPA money. As the money only needs to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and then spent by December 31st, 2026. So there's some time. So I just want to point that out. Getting right into this so that the commission can have discussion. There's really 5 ways that the recovery funds can be spent, which is supporting public health response, funding mitigation efforts, medical expenses, behavioral health care, and certain public health and safety staff, address negative economic impacts such as responding to economic harms to workers, families, small businesses, impacts industries, and rehiring of public sector workers, replace public sector revenue loss, use funds to provide government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue experienced due to the pandemic. Premium pay for essential workers, offer additional support to those who have and will bear the greatest health risks because of their service in the pandemic, and funds can be used retroactively back to December 27th, 2020, and that's an important date, and we'll circle back to that. But essentially, those essential workers had to have been in contact with daily with the pandemic and at risk for being exposed to COVID-19. And then finally, the 5th is water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. It's important that the majority of the costs incurred have to be after December 30th.
March.
Thank you, March 30th, 2021.
March 3rd.
March 3rd, 2021. Thank you, Ms. Nelson. But the December 27, 2020, or excuse me, January 27, 2020 is for premium pay. So that being said, the commission wanted me to dive into this a little bit and come up with some examples of eligible uses. I'll run through those quickly and then defer back to the commission. But the public health response is key. And every expense, really, local governments need to draw back to or circle back to, was this because of COVID-19? Was this an issue created because of the pandemic? So one key and obvious area is the public health response. So ARPA funds can go to support, vaccine deliveries, COVID-19 testing events, contract tracing, personal protective equipment, mitigating risk in congregate living facilities such as correctional centers, hospitals, etc. Supporting service delivery for healthcare centers and public health. And of course, reducing COVID risk in public buildings such as county office buildings, city halls, areas like that. Economic impact is another area. County cities can use their ARPA funds to provide technical support for businesses to help prevent businesses from shuttering their doors or staff because of COVID-19 and the harmful effects it brought to those businesses. Grants is another one that local governments can look into to provide grants to small businesses as well. Education, counties can use their ARPA funds to support school systems, especially in areas of high poverty or low income census tracts. So such programs like we'll use Amaretto School District as an example. ARPA funds could go and support some of their programs such as the Bulldog Basic Backpack Program, or can go into help or continue funding nurses for school nurses for fighting or helping out with the COVID-19 pandemic. And then as we heard from CVIC, ARPA funds can go to support nonprofits that address domestic violence in the communities, especially to low-income families that are the hardest hit. And then another area is premium pay for essential workers. We kind of touched on that. So again, that goes back to the sheriff. He's in here, or Kari as well. His deputies were in the field every day of the pandemic, at risk of coming across being exposed. Same with Kari and her staff. Public health workers is another great example. Correctional officers, of course, is another great example. So Commissioner Falk, that's just a quick summary rundown of ARPA. And I think at this point, I'll defer to the commission and for discussion on how to prioritize where we want to go. I have had some discussions with Altru, Red River Regional Child Advocacy Center. small business development centers, and many other CBIC. So there we are seeing some requests now for areas to partner. It's really up to the commission and the priorities. And again, we are being encouraged to take our time and be very deliberate. The interim final rule should be finalized by fall. So I would not spend any of this money until the interim tag is lifted. So with that, I'll defer.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're just in the initial stages, obviously. We did have, I sat in with Mr. Ford, we did have a meeting with All True online with Megan Compton and Christy Aldran, and the All True will probably be putting in a request, and that'll probably fall within these guidelines based on the fact their hospital was delayed primarily because of COVID issues. And they are going to undergo some added costs because of that. The other thing that occurred to me, I was thinking about our correctional center, that we could use some of that money to improve ventilation in the old correctional center instead of doing it during the remodeling. And I don't know, Ms. Burkholder, I think they want to try to put an infirmary in the new one, but if we could use that money to build out the infirmary in the present one, that would reduce the cost of that building also. So a lot of this could help us, but people are going to have to be flexible. They may not get what they want, but it's in the best interest of the taxpayer. Yeah, and the other thing that occurred to me last night, I was thinking about, we could talk to Debbie Swanson whether or not they could use a vehicle for like a van or something for all these vaccine programs they've got going on. And that's not going to end this fall, or this is going to go on for years. So anything that we can do to help them, I would think would be great, because they've really been at the tip of the spear on all of this.
Commissioner Paul?
Yeah.
Do you know what public health is using at this time when they're doing outreach,
Their mobile clinic.
the mobile clinic?
POVs probably with mileage.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm just saying, we can check with her and see
Sure.
what she's got and any of their needs, which will be, yeah, they'll be small in comparison to the total of this money that we have. So. And I think in the next few weeks, we should all be thinking of other possibilities of using that money, or talking to people who have potential needs.
You know, this, was it the school district that's putting out something to the public and how their money could be used, the 24 million that they're getting?
Front page.
What's in that?
The Grand Forks School District.
Yeah.
Is there a vote today?
Yeah, there's a vote today.
So, and
Okay.
I think I think we'll have to consider, it's a positive to consider some premium pay for people that were on the front lines. And I thought about public health for a long time. Those people just didn't even get vacations for a long period of time. So those are positives. Anything else?
Was this funding the second round that we got?
Was it, we've got the first installment.
Okay.
So we have 6.7 million.
Okay, but this
We'll get
was the
another.
second round of funding.
We got CARES Act money, that was
Different.
It went from
and
the
then
federal to the
recovered.
state to us and can be used differently.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking about the rate.
Yeah, this is more restrictive. We could actually use some of the funds that we thought we might have to use CARES money, and we can use this funds. And we can use our CARES money to do, for instance, fixing the restrooms in this building or various other things.
Yeah.
They weren't as
No.
specific as this.
No, that's for, improve economic development, et cetera, which would help us out.
Yeah, Commissioner Falk, the ARPA funds are a lot more restrictive. So there's, talking with Ms. Nelson, there could be some ways to pay ongoing PPE needs. Another great example is the COVID remodels going on first floor south in the state's attorney's office. We were going to use CARES Act. Well, we haven't received any invoices yet. So that's important, because now we can look at using ARPA, because that would qualify. So there's there's ways to
Yeah.
bring up the CARES.
The only thing about that is we'll have to figure out the vendors that do all this work for us. They want to be paid before we get that ARPA money, so we may have to figure out, can we pay them out of general fund and then pay ourselves back with the ARPA money instead, because.
Well, and based on the information that I've been seeing coming from public health and being on the board, the number of juveniles that are getting tested are very, very low, like 13% across the country. The new variant is in 49 states. We're not going to see this go away for quite some time, and we're certainly not going to see herd immunity amongst our population for a very long time. There has only been one recorded death of a child in North Dakota to date. But, you know, as kids start gathering together and sharing germs or whatever the case may be, there is a concern that more individuals could get sick, particularly in that parent category and the child category.
Well, yeah, it's definitely striking younger people and children more than the previous variant or whatever it was, yeah. Okay, anything else?
So how do you want us to move forward as far as gathering a list or thinking about, we know that there are some various entities that have needs, but you know, how do we, and I mean, if you opened it up to the county, everybody would have a need. I understand that, but we want to make sure that these funds are appropriately used, from public health to sheriff's department to some reconstruction things that could happen at the jail in this facility. How do you want to move forward on that?
Well, I think we could have Mr. Ford reach out to our affected department heads and have them get back to us with any thoughts they would have. That would be a good start. We've talked to CBIC, All True will be getting a hold of us. The schools are, you know, Grand Forks is getting money. Are some of the small schools getting money? Do we know? Don't know.
That would be a question of the superintendent of public
Yeah,
instruction.
so we could maybe reach out to Mr. Swantek, who you apparently know personally, Mr. Ford.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the upper school a couple of times.
Personal basis.
So we could reach out to him, you know, we all know the need, like the Emerado backpack, if that's in there. So,
Some of the larger schools, they usually tend to give them to them directly, and some of the smaller schools sometimes end up coming from the state.
right, so we need to find out how they'll get their funds, and maybe they're gonna have to get some from us. And then we'll have to decide or figure out as far as we want, and I think we're gonna have to strongly consider the premium pay. And I just made myself some notes: the sheriff's office, correctional center, juvenile detention, public health, and emergency management. They run the front of this. Now, I think everybody could say that, you know, they had contact or potential contact, but those people had it face to face on a daily basis, so.
Commissioner Falk, an important note for premium pay is that essential worker had to be out in contact. So for example, if you had the option to work from home and chose to work from home, then you wouldn't qualify. So obviously, sheriff's deputy who's patrolling the roads and responding, they're not working from home. They're out there.
Yeah.
Right. Kari is another great example. She was out there every day. The vaccination coordinators for public health, they're at the vaccination sites every day. So that's the caveat. You have to have been out there, and you can't have had the option to work from home.
Before I got a question though, support the support services, I mean, at the sheriff's office, they had face-to-face with people also. You know, people coming in to pay their taxes, you know, where they couldn't get into the courthouse here. So there's a lot of interaction with that staff besides the field deputies, having to meet with people. So would that,
Yes, Commissioner Ross, that's an excellent question. We need to dig into that. My understanding is no.
okay,
However, keep in mind, this is still interim and they're still taking public comments. And what I'm hearing is they should have it finalized by the fall, and then we'll know more.
okay,
I will say that Ms. Nelson and I, we met with, Ms. Norstead at the city and some of her folks, including their grant specialist, who has done a very deep dive into this. She's been very helpful for us. That's also something, you know, we can run past her and get her understanding as well. She's been a good resource.
I think one of the problems with that is that would then almost affect every employee, whether it's
Correct.
social services.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we have to maybe draw a line somewhere where they're more into a dangerous situation with that. If you meet the sheriff's deputy out assisting on a medical emergency, the person might have COVID, might not. Those people, they're gonna have to be out there. The same with we had problems with detention center and corrections officers who were getting sick because they were in immediate contact with people who had COVID.
And to use, Commissioner Hall, using First Floor South as an example, someone came in to pay their property tax bill.
But they didn't come in because we were closed.
They were, right, and plus, you got the protected
Right,
area.
right. The chance was
Right.
significantly less.
Plus mask wearing.
Yeah, in those
And
situations.
we were closed. They couldn't come in. Very rarely.
So, any other questions?
Do you have, so at this time, we're not going to be hearing from the final ruling on this until fall. So will there be another meeting of this, or are we in a sense waiting until
No,
fall?
I think we should have another meeting before. We kind of need to get organized a little bit, have at least an outline of what we think we might be able to do. So maybe we could meet,
Commissioner Falk, Commissioner Pete, I can, as Mr. Falk indicated, I can reach out to the department heads that we think qualify under the premium pay and some other areas, and just find out how they are affected, what do they think, what are the numbers, what are the hours, what are the impacts. Going into the premium pay realm is gonna put some significant workload on payroll and human resources as well, so we'll want them highly involved in those discussions. But I can start collecting some information, bring it back to the commission at a later date, and we can go from there if you'd like.
I suppose, and maybe we could lessen it if we could somehow do it on a monthly basis or just a flat sum per employee. It would make it somewhat easier, but we'll have to figure that out down the road. But the next question is, yeah, I'm looking at in August, because I think July is too early to meet again. We won't have responses back. So I'm looking to maybe have our meeting before the commission meeting.
So the first meeting is compared to the second meeting?
Yeah, which one works better, August 6th or 20th for you?
The 6th, because the 20th is going to be the zone meeting, the social
That's
service.
all you worry about is that zone. We're gonna have to move that zone out of here. Well,
No, we're not.
we're, well, okay, but what I was actually, I'm sorry, more concerned than the zone meeting was Miss Nelson's. If we had any
Budget stuff.
budget issues or things we were gonna have to do before that.
No, I think August 6th would work.
All right, then.
Yep.
We'll take care of the zone meeting. So the 6th at, what time should we meet, folks?
2 o'clock or 3 o'clock.
An hour can go fast with the discussion about this, so I think you need to.
2 o'clock, and then we have time for a break, and, yeah, okay, let's meet
The
at
6th of August is a Friday.
Even the third.
or the 3rd of August.
The 3rd of August is a Tuesday.
Yeah, the 3rd will work.
Thank you. I'm good the 6th of August. I got nothing.
Jeez.
We'll probably be, burning fields by then,
We, is social services under our umbrella for this? It is not, right?
Well, that's probably another.
Or what?
For,
We'll have to peek into the weeds on that one, ma'am. Social services, human services qualifies, but they're more state now, so are they gonna would that fall under the state's ARPA funds?
Well, I think they should get their money out of the state ARPA.
I think
We're
so.
being- we're being reimbursed with salaries.
The state is funding them completely.
Yeah, that's a state issue.
So they would go the state funds then, Commissioner.
So that would just be a
that
discussion
makes
with
sense. I
Scott.
just wanted to clarify that so that I can take that off the plate when I'm thinking about this. And I think that when it comes to like the premium pay, that sort of thing, I think that we need to, not all entities may have had some exposure or involvement, but some more than others. And so I think that we need to look at or consider some more for others in that whole deal. Public health, of course, was the extreme. I mean, that was their life.
And we would want to talk to the city
But
about
other entities weren't, while they may have had exposure, weren't as involved or
I don't think.
didn't get involved.
The city is not gonna
They're
go.
not gonna do the pay, extra pay, so public health being city employees will not be getting, I don't believe.
I think in the water treatment wastewater issue.
I would still though, Ms. Peach, I would agree, still sit down with the city and say if that's a route the commission wants to go. Because they'd have to essentially invoice us, Ms. Nelson, since they do the payroll, and we would, just like we do the school nurses, I would assume. But
We need to have that discussion.
Yeah, and if they're not gonna take care of public health, I don't have any problems with us taking. care of it.
Right, I don't either, but
That's kind of been the way this has been going, so. Okay, anything else?
2 o'clock or 3 o'clock?
Motion
2
to-
o'clock.
2 o'clock on the 3rd.
2 o'clock on the third.
First meeting in August.
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
So we'll
we're adjourned.